Following the tragic shooting in Charleston last week, liberals and the media tried to use the event to push for increased gun control. Well, Karl Rove weighed in on the issue yesterday on Fox News Sunday. Watch this.
So we've come a long way. Now, maybe there's some magic law that will keep us from having more of these. I mean, basically, the only way to guarantee that we would dramatically reduce acts of violence involving guns is to basically remove guns from society. And until somebody gets enough oomph to repeal the Second Amendment, that's not going to happen. I don't think it's an answer.
Joining me now, Fox News contributor, former Deputy Chief of Staff and Advisor to President George W. Bush, the aforementioned Karl Rove. Karl, good to see you again. So your statement caught a few people's ears, let's call it that. I read it, and I looked at and I'm guessing there was a little bit of sarcasm in there. Was there a hint of sarcasm?
Well, look, people always in moments like this, some politicians look for magic answers, and I don't think this is an answer. As I said, I went on to describe what I think we ought to be focused about now, which is we had warning signs from this young man. He talked to friends about it. He talked to other individuals about it. He went on the internet and openly explained what he was going to do, and somehow or another we missed those signs. We need more personal responsibility in our society, in my opinion, in which friends and family and community care about each other enough to take these things seriously. The idea that somehow or another this could have been prevented by some gun control act just simply is not accurate. I mean, take Chicago. It has some of the toughest gun control laws on the books, and yet it's, a murder capital. And it's because when you take away the people's right to keep and bear arms, bad people keep and bear arms and use them. So, as I said yesterday on Fox News Sunday, this is not an answer.
What is the answer that's needed, or at least one of the answers? Because there's not one either or. There's not a magic bullet. Yeah. I agree with you on that. And we're never going to repeal the Second Amendment. I think that point you made, because the last part of your statement was you said not going to happen.
Well, and we shouldn't. I'm not suggesting it's even a good idea, but I do think this. I think, first of all, evil exists, and we've got to recognize that in our fallen condition, there will always be evil. In this specific instance, I do worry that we had some warning signs that people should have picked up on and didn't. He was on the internet saying these violent things. He was saying these things to friends, probably was saying it to family as well, and yet somehow or another, people didn't care enough, didn't take the responsibility for their fellow citizens seriously enough to do something about it.
Well, this is what the president had to say about this, and of course, the presumptive Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton.
You don't see murder on this kind of scale with this kind of frequency in any other advanced nation on earth. What's different is not every country is awash with easily accessible guns.
And I am not and will not be afraid to keep fighting for common sense reforms and, along with you, achieve those on behalf of all who have been lost because of this senseless gun violence in our country.
Okay, so the president, he makes his statement, he pulls the agenda into it, Karl, and then Hillary Clinton plays to it. You've been in that White House. What do you think?
Well, what I was interested was that earlier in the week, the president basically said, look, we're not going to get additional gun control measures. And then on Friday, when he went before the mayors, is when he ramped up the pressure. And I frankly think the president should have stayed away from the issue altogether. I do not think he helps his cause. I do not think he serves the nation well by doing this. I think it would have been better for him to have been talking about how we as a society have a responsibility to love a neighbor like we'd like to be loved ourselves. And in this instance, we had somebody who was espousing hate, and rather than raise a concern, talk to people in authority, talk to the family, raise some warning signs. When these warning signs were raised, people didn't act. And that's what we ought to be focused on as a country. We also ought to be focused on this incredible example that we have of how love was met. I mean, this evil was met by love, admittedly by grief. I hate that it had to be in a situation where it's accompanied by grief, but this is an incredible example of the reconciliation that has taken place in the United States, particularly in the South. And I thought Nikki Haley this afternoon Standing next to her was the first African American since the Reconstruction era to be a senator from the South, and standing next to her was Lindsey Graham, who had previously opposed the removal of the Confederate flag. But there was this recognition by South Carolina as a community that it was time to return that flag to the museum where it belonged and to remove this hateful symbol that so many people in the state of South Carolina saw as a hateful symbol. I thought it was an incredible moment. That's where the president ought to be focused, not on something that is for political points, for electoral politics, and is a cause that he has championed with no success, even when he had a Congress that was overwhelmingly populated by members of his own party.
Well, the reality is no one's going to remove the Second Amendment. It will never be overturned in the United States. Karl, thank you.